let's talk a little bit about presenting on the day. So, if you were going to pitch to a client, a potential client, you'd do your homework, wouldn't you? You'd know who was there, what's their agenda. Do the same with your partnership panel. Establish where's it being held, who's going to be in attendance, what are they expecting from you. And there'll be the formal guidance and there'll be the informal guidance. That's where you want to speak to your mentor. What are they really expecting? If they were sitting there on that partnership panel, what would they be expecting? Also, what are those potential agendas of the partners in your panel? Now, if you know that in your firm you're about to have a change of leadership team, and you know when there's a change of leadership team, because suddenly everything gets a bit uncertain and you hear whispers and all that sort of stuff. Just remember that what may have been the strategy now may not be the strategy in 2 years' time. So just be aware of that. Who's sitting there, where are they, what is their potential agenda, but also some of the basics that if you were traveling to a pitch, you'd work out how to get to the location, how much time to leave for travel. Now, if you're in an international firm where maybe you're doing partner panels regionally, I know that happens a lot with the big four and some of the very big law firms, is if you've got to take a flight or if you've got to travel a long distance, consider going the night before. Waking up afresh, not worrying about how I'm going to get there, is more important than a cost of a hotel. It's as simple as that. So how do you actually be confident on the day? Well, the first thing is having all those logistics sorted helps. It's one less thing to worry. And I think I want to get the message, to be confident on the day, one less thing to worry about needs to be your mantra. And it is all about that practice and that anticipation. So, I had a client of mine do, it was actually, thankfully, it was a mock panel for director in a big four, but he stopped working at 2 a.m. in the morning as he had a lot of client work on. Hardly got any sleep. And then, of course, he wasn't at his best. And, of course, he handled the questions badly. So, look, aim to switch off before the panel so you can get your head in the right place. Do that final run through of your presentation on the day. I'm a professional speaker. I do a lot of speaking, but I will still, if I'm up on the stage in front of thousands of people, I will still have cue cards stuck in my back pocket. I won't use them, but they're there to give me peace of mind. The next thing is, if you're relying on a projector or something, have backups of your material. If something goes wrong with the equipment on the day, it happens. If there's a power cut, what would you do? Think about these things. So have, handouts. You should be able to deliver this without needing the slides. Because after all, this is all about, really, it is all about what are you going to do to grow a business? That's what it's about. Ideally, this should be well enough that you could trot this out to anybody. This is what I'm doing in my business to grow it. Now, here are some of the sort of mother type things. Keep yourself hydrated and eat some high quality food. Going in there on a low blood sugar, yes, you're going to have adrenaline rushing through your veins, but actually make sure you're hydrated, that you've eaten the right things that works for you. Keep the alcohol or caffeine in the evening before the panel to a minimum. I realized, Marie, if you're actually French, I probably just said no alcohol the night before. It's probably like a swear word in your culture, but it is about making sure that your brain is at its best for when you're at the panel, and do everything in your power to get a good night's sleep the night before. Now, very often when we're very stressed out, we've got all of this adrenaline going through our veins. Sleep can be, shall we say, not the easiest thing to find. And when I often turn into an insomniac when I've got a very big professional speaking gig to do. When there's a couple of hundred people in the audience, I'll stop sleeping. And actually, one of the things I learned is adrenaline is my friend, and it'll get me through most things, which is really handy when you're awake at 2 a.m. in the morning thinking, I need to be asleep, I really need to be asleep. Do everything you need to do the night before to get that best night's sleep. From doing a little bit of light exercise, not too much so you're buzzing with adrenaline, a bit of light exercise. If you're into yoga or Pilates or meditation, this is your time to do it. Eat early, not late. As I said, alcohol can often make you need to get up in the middle of the night to go to the loo. Try not to do that. Plus, alcohol actually stops you getting a good night's sleep. It stops that deep quality sleep. I feel like I'm lecturing you, my apologies. The other thing is check your body language. You know, if you're going in there sort of cowered over, it's not going to work. Check, how are you standing? Are you standing up tall? Are you standing upright? And this is a big one for you, Neve, that gravitas of that body language. We take so many clues from how people are. You know, are you making eye contact with every member of the panel? You know, I often talk about the Pilates pose that they teach you when you stand up, that somebody is pulling your body upwards. You're keeping your shoulders down, but somebody's pulling your body upwards, that you're feeling as if you're standing. And actually, when you stand with the right body language, you know, this starts to give the right messages to your brain that, yeah, I am in control. I am in a good place. And remember that our body gives as much messages to our brain as our brain gives to our body. And you know, a lot of people say, oh, I'm never going to do any presentations. I hate it. I try and avoid it. And it's amazing how many great professionals. The reality is, unless you're in a small regional firm, you will be presenting your business case at some point. End of. You know, it will happen. So why do we actually get nervous when we're presenting? Well, often it's because we've been pushed out of our comfort zone. And we remember the time where, you know, our brain is very primitive with fear. And, you know, there would have been some incident or some messages that, you know, people laughing at you in a big group is not a good thing. How do people think? You know, when we're up in front of a group, we're very vulnerable. And when we're vulnerable, our brain goes, don't do this. So, you know, your brain is always trying to keep you in its comfort, in your comfort zone. And the way it does is make you feel fear. So what we've got to remember when we're presenting is this is not a fearful situation. There's no need to be fearful because we've done our prep, we've done our practice, and, you know, I'm going to come on to some of that stuff, that we are as ready as we can be. And if we put that kind of message into our brains, it really helps. So I'm going to come on a little bit. Another big reason why we get nervous is we're under-rehearsed. We're still scrabbling around for the words. That we can sort out. The next thing is we don't believe in what we're saying. You know, if we're not confident in what we're saying, then we're going to have some of these problems. So you've got to be confident that you can do it. So I'm just going to go on to some of those tips. Now, I literally started to spend time with a professional speaking coach because of that insomnia running up. And it would be months before a big thing. I would lose sleep months beforehand, which is not good, really not good. And she told me it's because you're doing your dress rehearsal on the day you're delivering it, which was, whoa, that was that moment. So what you want to do is practice your final dress rehearsal, your final big run. She said to me 2 weeks beforehand, you know, I've got the luxury of being my own boss, but for yourself, 1 week beforehand that you've done it, and then you leave it. You don't go back to it. You do that final dress rehearsal. Ideally, you know, in that final dress rehearsal, you have your mentor, maybe sponsoring partners, some friendly partners to quiz you on your business case and let you present to them. You know, use your mentor, use the people in your part of the department that really want to get you to partner to help prepare you. Remember, it's in their interest if they're sponsoring you to help you with this stuff. Only then, on the day, do you then do a quick run through on the day. But you leave it a week. And if your brain goes, am I ready? You tell it, I am ready. And you do that. You actually talk back to your brain. Now, the power of visualization is really, really, really cool stuff, which we don't realize. Is they did an experiment. And they got half of the people in the experiment to practice on a piano this piece. They then got the other people in the experiment and they got them without a piano to practice for the same amount of time using visualization. So so you can imagine it, there's these pianists that are sitting there visualizing what notes they'll press without a piano in front of them, how it's going to feel, how it's going to sound, what it's going to be like, going into that level of connecting with their senses. And what they found was that the next day, there was no difference in performance level and ability between the people that had the piano and those that visualized it. That is because our brain cannot distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. So you can use visualization beforehand. And this works not just suddenly visualizing the day beforehand, but actually weeks beforehand when you know you've got this pitch take a few times a day, just allocate 5 minutes to mentally visualize your presentation going well. Now, just like those pianists without the piano. And you'll find, visualize people smiling at you, visualize them being engaged, visualize the questions going well, and your questions you want to be asked you coming in there. And that can work really well. The other thing is affirmations. So affirmations are short, sharp little phrases that you say to yourself that help change your state. And what you do is when you're saying them to practice it, you be in the state you want to be. So one of the affirmations I used right at the beginning of setting up my business was, Heather, you can do anything that you put your mind to it. And I'd literally say it many times a day in front of the mirror, but I'd say it with a feeling of confidence. Heather, you can do anything you put your mind to it, with the emphasis mind. And now, if I need to give myself a boost in confidence, if I need to rechange my state to one of confidence, I'll say, Heather, you can put your mind to anything. And instantly I'm up, I'm more confident. But both visualization, affirmations, these take time. These aren't something you can do the night before. These are something that you probably need to start doing weeks before to help you do that. Now, breathing exercises. So, a bit of science. The vagus nerve is connected from the brain to the major organs of your body. So that's your heart, your lungs. And when your automatic sympathetic nervous system is triggered, which we often think of as our fight or flight, into your body comes noradrenaline, adrenaline, and cortisol. That speeds up your heart rate, takes your blood pressure up, gets you ready to run or to fight. It increases your immune system temporarily. So when that saber-toothed tiger took a bite out of you, you'd have a bit more immunity from all the bugs that would come in from the open wound. But what most people don't realize is that you can actually send messages from your body up to your brain to say, hang on, I'm fine, let's calm down a bit. And so the way you do that is by a very simple breathing exercise. If you've got any problems with high blood pressure, this works really, really well. It's where you take a breathe in for 4 or 5, it doesn't really matter, a number of seconds, and then you breathe out for double that amount of time. And actually, when you're stressed, you'll find it's really hard to breathe out slowly. So imagine that you're just breathing out through a straw. Now, I'm finding that really difficult at the moment because I'm in the middle of presenting and I've boosted myself up. So, these are very much those breathing exercises to do before you go in the room. It is about breathing in for a count of 4, breathing out for double, breathing in for a count of 3, and really focusing on gently getting that breath out. Because when you're stressed and whatever, your body will fight against it. But if you persist, you'll then tell your brain that everything's fine, we can calm down. And that really helps your nerves when you're going into a presentation. In fact, just taking a long, deep breath, if you can feel it's just getting all a bit too much and your nerves are driving you. And the other thing is, when you're in there in the room, smile at your partners. I know that seems really strange, but smile at them. They'll smile back, it'll help you, and it just helps everyone relax. Your partners don't want you to have a bad go at it all. So how do you actually make your presentation more memorable? So let's start a little bit about handling questions on the day, because I've known people whose presentations have been memorable for all the wrong reasons, and it's to do with these questions. And I know, Marie, that was what you were really wanting. It was about those questions on the day. And it is a little bit about mindset. So remember that your partners are doing their due diligence, not trying to catch you out or deliberately playing bad cop. And we often think, oh, they were just making it hard for me. They wanted to make me sweat. No, remember, as Neve said, this is a pitch to investors. They're doing their due diligence. Keep that in your head. Depersonalize any sort of stories about they don't like me, they're going to make it hard for me, all of that stuff. Depersonalize. It's not about that. They are considering whether to make an investment in you. That's all they're doing. Now, very often, you might get a reaction that triggers you. I had one of my clients who said his numbers, and the HR person went, well, that's not very impressive, is it? And it just triggered him. And if you get that kind of reaction, the big thing to do is just sort of acknowledge and go, oh, I hear you saying it's not very impressive. I'd love to know the context of what you're basing that on. Ask for clarification about that reaction. Actually ask, because then you can start to, you've got to see their map of the world when you get those sort of, um, those sort of negative reactions. You've got to understand their map of the world, because then you can start to meet with them where they are and therefore start to influence your point of view. And I had this client, as I said, who just got really defensive when he got that reaction, whereas what he should have said was something, and he now did say it second time around, because he did make it to director in his real thing. Should have said, I can see why you think that those numbers aren't particularly impressive, particularly if you've seen 3, 4, 5 of my peers. But what you've got to realize is they've been handed a portfolio. They get work that comes to them every year because it's the normal compliance stuff. So yeah, if my numbers were like those, of course it wouldn't be any impressive. But what you don't realize is that I've had to go out and win each of those individual clients myself. When you realize that I started this practice with 0 and I've got to this time, hopefully you'll see this is a little bit more impressive, and it demonstrates my ability to go out and win work. So it's about that clarification. Now, you might get some question, you're like, I don't think they asked me that, or did they really ask me that? And sometimes the voices in our heads actually make a question into something it isn't. And if you feel that, acknowledge that question. I just want to check, are you asking me this? I just want to check, are you saying this? I just want to check, I've just jumped to this conclusion. Is that the right conclusion? Acknowledge any questions, acknowledge any of these reactions you're sensing, because it'll really help. And remember, these could be your future business partner. You're not presenting to them, you're having a discussion with them.